Well, I have heard of narrative control and spinning a narrative, but this is getting pathetic. Isn't it bad enough that LeBron James had to begin his own podcast, Mind the Game, back in March of 2024? Of course, famously featuring his wine-sipping bestie, JJ Redick, who later had to resign or relinquish that position because LeBron made him his new head coach of the LA Lakers. Now that role is filled by Steve Nash. And on this propaganda podcast, these two just rewrite the actual history that occurred around LeBron James in this revisionist propaganda that comes out, roughly about once a week. Even during the NBA season, maybe it's not that frequently. I don't really pay that close of attention to it. But now Rich Paul, LeBron James's other bestie, of course, other than his wine-sipping friend JJ, Rich Paul, who is a lifelong confidant and part of LeBron's inner circle. Of course, they launched Clutch Sports together. Rich Paul is LeBron James's representation, his agent, if you believe that. That is, if you believe that Rich Paul himself isn't just a puppet operating at the whims of LeBron James. Anyway, he now has his own, weekly podcast. We'll just have to find out. Stay tuned, I suppose, for he and Max Kellerman in a pod called Game Over. Yes, not bad enough that we have LeBron on airwaves already. Let's get his agent on too to start puffing LeBron up and also lying about everything that's happened in his past to try to reset the narratives moving forward for people that just either weren't old enough or just don't remember. And they had their debut episode yesterday. It was 90 minutes in length. They covered a myriad of topics. I, unfortunately and sadly enough, listened to the entire 90 minutes. They began actually with the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, a topic they spent about 30 minutes covering. But it wasn't just about Patrick Mahomes. They were interweaving LeBron James throughout the conversation. See, look, now I'm going to get blasted by all of you guys because I'm talking about this. I'm not doing this. These people keep insinuating themselves into the conversation. They keep doing things that are newsworthy. Therefore, I am merely reacting to it and talking about it, just like Max and Rich were doing with the Kansas City Chiefs and the seeming end of their dynasty. But Rich Paul put an interesting little spin on this. He actually suggested that Patrick Mahomes should consider leaving Kansas City in the offseason. And he also went so far as to say that if it were up to him, that Mahomes would land in Dallas.
You know where I want to see Mahomes?
Where? You don't
Dallas.
like my theory. You want to see Mahomes in Dallas? You want Mahomes to switch teams?
But both Rich and Kellerman acknowledge that it isn't a common practice for players to crawl on their hands and knees out of their existing teams and jump around the league to various other teams, stacking the deck and building and amassing rosters to go steal cheap championship rings. Yeah, it just isn't as common in the NFL as it is in the NBA. And, well, we all know why that is.
The NFL player is not empowered the way that the NBA player, or so they don't think they are.
Yes, NFL players don't run an abandoned ship by and large in the NFL, but Rich Paul did acknowledge that Mahomes doesn't necessarily have the pressure to win that is motivating him to cower up and run from his existing franchise, which, of course, LeBron James did have when he bailed ship in Cleveland and hopped to Miami.
He does not have the pressure to win. He's won. Normally, a superstar in that position, they have a pressure to get over the hump. So that's kind of pushing them out the door or wanting change as well.
But again, it is easier to do this kind of stuff in the NBA, according to Rich Paul, because of LeBron James. Because the martyr, LeBron, took a bullet for the whole league and for the betterment of all of the players. LeBron ushered in this era of player empowerment for everybody else. It wasn't just about him stealing championships because he couldn't win under the parameters that other players that came before him did. No, it was about doing what's best for the whole league and making it better and easier for all the other players to do the same thing that LeBron James did. See, again, this is that narrative crafting and revisionism that I'm talking about. Of course, we know that the player empowerment movement destroyed the NBA. It completely crushed the competitive balance of the sport and depreciated the product for at least a decade, and we are still digging out from under it. But if you listen to old Rich spin it right here, he would have you believe that LeBron actually did a favor to the NBA.
A lot of the NBA players got flack for this, starting with the obvious, got flack. But
who's the obvious?
You have to understand, and you have to want to be willing to take on that responsibility and accountability. I don't want to be here.
He and Max go on with the LeBron and Patrick Mahomes kind of comparisons, suggesting that this year for Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and the Chiefs is kind of like the last year in Miami for LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, where, look, it was the end. Obviously, things were over. It was time to move on and start the next chapter. Of course, Rich Paul points out that it was easy for LeBron to move because he was going back to Cleveland.
I think that LeBron had an ideal spot because he came from there.
But not so fast, Rich. Even Max Kellerman, who has practically no journalistic integrity, wasn't going to sit idly by and just let you get away with this one. Max points out that he also Kyrie Irving.
And because he saw Kyrie Irving.
That too.
Yeah.
That's a reason.
Max, though, fails to point out that it wasn't just about Kyrie Irving, of course. They also brought in Kevin Love. They flipped the first overall pick in the upcoming NBA draft when they won the lottery. They flipped that pick, which ultimately became Andrew Wiggins, and we know how sought after of a prospect he was coming into the NBA. Yeah, they used that number 1 overall pick to bring Kevin Love into Cleveland because that's how damn good Kevin Love was at the time that it was worth it to send the top overall pick, which was allegedly this generational prospect at the time in Andrew Wiggins, for Kevin Love, who that season prior to teaming up in Cleveland with LeBron and Kyrie Irving was second-team All-NBA, and the only reason he wasn't first-team All-NBA is because he was a forward distinction, and Kevin Durant and LeBron James were first team on the forward spot, so Kevin got stuck with the second team honor, but he was a top 5 player in the NBA that season. He finished top 4 in player efficiency rating, value over replacement, and box plus minus. In fact, he was top 3 and even second in some of those categories. He was right there with league MVP Kevin Durant that season and LeBron James himself. That was how good Kevin Love was, and they brought him in to go along with Kyrie Irving. Of course, that wasn't good enough either, so LeBron James then had to jump ship there and go to the LA Lakers, the most storied franchise in NBA history, the most successful franchise in NBA history, but according to Rich Paul, not a championship organization.
I think the Lakers can trend towards that way now.
Because they got the ownership?
Yes, because championship organizations encompass more than just getting the best players. This one I actually do agree with. Rich Paul specifically highlights the Oklahoma City Thunder, the San Antonio Spurs, and he even spotlights the Miami Heat.
The Miami Heat was another one. San Antonio is another one.
And ultimately, that's because it's just about that winning mindset from the top on down, like, for instance, Pat Riley, who unquestionably has it.
Pat Riley's mindset.
Yes.
Pat Riley had a championship mindset.
But here's the thing, Rich. LeBron was there. He was in Miami, and he couldn't cut it there. He didn't like that mindset. His personality clashed, and he butted heads with Pat Riley. He had to leave, and if you hear Pat Riley tell it, it's because, well, LeBron James was a coward. That's why he left.
This stuff is hard. And you got to stay together if you got the guts, and you don't find the first door and run out of it.
So if LeBron is in an organization that isn't championship caliber, he has only himself to blame because, according to Rich Paul, he was in a championship caliber organization, but he just couldn't cut it, so he bailed. After 4 years, he went and he got Anthony Davis, of course. And when AD was right and on the court, he's like a top 5 to 10 player in this current NBA, but that wasn't good enough. They swapped AD and turned it into Luka Doncic, who was 5 consecutive first-team All-NBA selections going into his pairing in LA. He's a top 3 league-wide player. He's leading the NBA in scoring currently. He's averaging damn near a 35-point triple-double. And with the emergence of Austin Reeves as a bona fide second caliber option, he is 8th in the NBA in scoring right now. You would think that this team, with the alleged GOAT LeBron James, would have enough to compete for a championship this season, but no, not so fast. According to Rich Paul, this team isn't a contender.
Like, I personally don't think the Lakers are good enough to be contenders right now. Not right now.
And look, realistically, I again agree with this point. No one really other than the Oklahoma City Thunder are contenders, though I have questioned if they will win the championship this season. I think the Houston Rockets are perfectly equipped to be able to compete with that team in the playoffs. But according to Rich Paul, not only is it the Oklahoma City Thunder they can't beat, Rich doesn't even think that they can get to the Western Conference Finals.
I don't think they have enough to get to the Western Conference Final. I don't think they have enough to get to really contend from that perspective.
So
right
OKC.
And okay, I see what we're doing here. We're not just narrative crafting, we're planting those seeds of excuses, because LeBron James's entire career has been run by these excuses. He either wins the NBA championship or there's some other reason outside of himself as to why that didn't happen. It's never LeBron's fault. It can never be LeBron's fault. It's about the help he doesn't have, the competition being too good that he's facing, the injuries that he accrues along the way. Something inevitably has to stop LeBron from being able to win the NBA championship year in and year out, because he is in his 23rd season and he does only have 4 NBA championships. So for the other 20 years, there has to be some spectacular event or string of events which stops the king from getting his championships. And I guess we need to start building those excuses now already, despite Luka Doncic quickly progressing to what should be his 6th first-team All-NBA selection if he plays the 65 games that are mandated for him to be eligible, and Austin Reeves, who will be an all-star, and he has a shot at being an All-NBA selection as well. But again, that just simply isn't enough help. There aren't a viable NBA championship contender right now, so I guess LeBron James must want to trade out of town. Well, again, not so fast. According to Rich Paul, LeBron will be ending his season in a Lakers uniform.
Is LeBron realistically a guy who could not be on the Lakers at the end of this year?
No.
Because don't forget, if you did, let Rich Paul remind you that LeBron does have that no trade clause.
The only way that would happen and could happen, first of all, he has a no trade clause, so he would have to agree to that.
So even though the Lakers aren't contenders, that despite LeBron James not being good enough to be anything other than the 3rd option on this team, he also doesn't want to leave town to go compete for a championship. And that is despite the fact, according to Rich Paul, like 29 other teams would want LeBron, and he would make 29 other teams better.
LeBron make the
because
Knicks
Brunson's
better?
too small.
Yes.
Yeah.
He would, of
Yeah.
course. But 29 other teams would say the same thing.
Well, not exactly, because when you look at LeBron's on-offs right now this season, he's sitting at a minus 0.1 for the year, which honestly is a huge improvement from last season when he was minus 5.2 per 100 possessions that he was on the court versus off of it last season. He's actually only taking away 1/10 of a point right now. So he plays the Lakers basically to a stalemate when he's on the court, but he is moving in the wrong direction on the defensive side of the ball. Last year, he just made his team 4.5 points worse on defense, while as right now, he is making his team 8.5 points worse currently on defense. So I don't really know that there are 29 teams out there that would want that right now, Rich Paul. But hey, I see you working out there, player. Keep the hustle alive, keep your nose down, keep grinding, and keep creating these ridiculous narratives and false propaganda to spread about your best friend and puppeteer, LeBron James. I, of course, because I must, will be here to talk about it and debunk it all.